Welcome to the deep dive.
Hmm.
Today, we're going a bit deeper than just, talking about skipping meals.
Mhm.
We're really going to get under the hood and look at how intermittent fasting impacts your body's hormonal communication system.
Right. It's all about those chemical signals.
Exactly. Think of it as understanding the messengers that, well, dictate so much when you change how you eat.
Yeah, absolutely. It's key to understanding how these diet shifts really act on the main hormonal players, the ones running everything from, say, your energy and appetite.
To stress, even reproductive health.
Exactly that. And our goal here in this deep dive is really to pull out those key insights, those aha moments about the science, but, in a way that's clear and actually useful.
And it's quite a lineup of hormones we'll be talking about. Insulin, obviously, for blood sugar.
Crucial one.
Then leptin and ghrelin, the hunger and fullness signals. Always find those fascinating.
They really are. And cortisol, too, the stress manager.
Can't forget cortisol. Plus, thyroid hormones for metabolism.
Yeah.
And, the sex hormones, too. Knowing their basic jobs is sort of step one, right?
Definitely. So hormones, fundamentally, they're just chemical messengers produced by glands, travel in the blood.
Like little couriers with instructions.
Pretty much, they bind to specific cells, like a key in a lock, and tell them what to do. It's the body's internal communication network.
Okay, so within that network, who are the main players we're focusing on today? The ones really affected by intermittent fasting?
Well, like you said, insulin central for blood glucose, then leptin and ghrelin, the hunger regulators.
Yep.
Cortisol for stress. Thyroid hormones, mainly T3, the active one, and T4 for metabolism.
Got it.
And finally, the sex hormones, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, they're important for both men and women's reproductive health.
Right, quite the list. So let's dive straight into insulin then. We hear so much about blood sugar. How does fasting actually interact with insulin?
Okay, so insulin's main job is helping glucose sugar from your food, mostly carbs, get out of your bloodstream and into your cells for energy.
Right.
When you fast, obviously, you're cutting down carbs during that window. Less glucose enters your blood.
So the body just doesn't need as much insulin.
Exactly. Less glucose coming in means the pancreas doesn't get the signal to pump out as much insulin. It's a pretty direct link.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But why is lowering insulin often talked about as such a big potential benefit?
Well, the really interesting part here is the potential for improving insulin sensitivity.
Sensitivity, meaning your cells listen better.
Precisely. If your cells are constantly bombarded with high insulin, they can start to, well, ignore the signal. That's insulin resistance. It's like tuning out background noise.
Okay.
Intermittent fasting essentially gives your system a break from that constant signaling. It can make the cells more responsive again. And some studies actually show improvements, maybe 15% to 30% better sensitivity in some cases.
Wow, 15 to 30%. That sounds significant.
It can be, yeah. It likely happens because there's less demand on the pancreas, and maybe the insulin receptors on the cells work better. Better sensitivity means lower risk for things like type 2 diabetes.
So letting insulin levels drop isn't just about managing sugar right now. It's potentially making your body better at it long term. And maybe helps burn fat, too.
Exactly. When insulin is low, it's like flipping a switch. Your body gets much better at tapping into stored fat for fuel instead of relying only on incoming glucose. That metabolic flexibility is a big part of why IF is linked to weight management.
Okay, fascinating. Let's move on to those hunger hormones, leptin and ghrelin. This is where, for me anyway, it seems counterintuitive. You'd think that not eating would just make you ravenous.
Yeah, that's what most people expect. And initially, it can feel that way. So leptin comes from fat cells, tells your brain you're full, you've got enough energy stored.
The I'm good signal.
Right. And ghrelin, mostly from the stomach, is the opposite. It shouts, time to eat.
The feed me hormone.
Exactly. So when you first start fasting, leptin might dip a bit because no energy is coming in. And ghrelin, yeah, that can definitely go up. That's largely responsible for those initial hunger pangs.
So those first few days or weeks might genuinely feel like a struggle against your own biology. Your body's basically protesting.
It can certainly feel like that, but what's really remarkable is how the body adapts.
Adapts how?
Well, over time, many people find their hunger cues actually become more stable, more predictable. It's not the same intense roller coaster as in the beginning.
Really? So you don't just feel hungry all the time?
Not usually, no. It seems like the communication adjusts. The brain, particularly the hypothalamus, which regulates appetite, gets used to the new pattern. The ghrelin spikes might become less intense or shorter-lived.
That's actually really encouraging. Good news for anyone worried about being constantly hangry if they try fasting. Okay, let's tackle cortisol, the stress hormone. How does deliberately skipping food affect our stress response?
Right? Cortisol. It is crucial for stress response, but also involved in, waking you up, managing blood sugar, inflammation, lots of things.
So not just bad.
Definitely not. But when you start fasting, your body can initially see it as a mild stressor, where's the food?
Yeah.
So you might get a temporary bump in cortisol levels while your system adjusts.
Okay, so a little spike at the start is maybe normal adaptation.
Hmm.
What's the potential downside then? Where does it become a problem?
The main concern is really about chronic stress. If you've already got high stress from work, life, poor sleep, and then you add a very intense or prolonged fasting schedule on top.
Attacking stressors.
Exactly. That combination could potentially lead to cortisol staying elevated for too long, and that can mess with sleep, mood, maybe even counteract some of the metabolic benefits you're hoping for.
Hmm.
That said, some research actually suggests that, done properly, IFOF might help regulate cortisol rhythms long term. But the big takeaway is self-awareness. Pay attention to your body. Don't push it if you're already overloaded with stress.
That makes total sense. It's about the whole picture, not just the fasting itself. Okay, let's switch gears to thyroid hormones, metabolism controllers, another area people often worry about with fasting.
Yeah, thyroid hormones are critical. T4 is produced, then converted to T3, which is the more active form really driving metabolism, energy use, body temp.
Right.
Now, very long fasts or severe prolonged calorie restriction have been shown to potentially lower T3 levels. And theoretically, that could slow metabolism down.
Okay, but keywords there are prolonged and severe, right? What about the more typical IF schedules like 16.8 or alternate days?
Exactly. For those more common approaches, the current research suggests there's likely minimal impact on thyroid function in people who are generally healthy. Most studies don't find significant drops in T3 or T4.
So for most healthy folks, typical IF probably won't wreck their thyroid.
Seems unlikely based on current evidence. However, and this is really, really important if someone already has a thyroid condition like or hyperthyroidism,
Oh, yeah. Good point.
they absolutely need to talk to their doctor before starting any fasting. The interaction could be very different for them. Can't stress that enough.
Crucial advice.
Yeah.
Definitely noted. Okay, let's move into sex hormones and reproductive health. This generates a lot of questions, especially understandably for women.
It does, and it's complex because, well, male and female hormonal systems are different. For women, some studies suggest IF might lower levels of DHEA.
DHEA. What's that?
It's a precursor hormone. Your body uses it to make other sex hormones like estrogen and testosterone. One study, for instance, found time-restricted eating led to about a 14% drop in DHEA in women.
Is a 14% drop significant?
Well, in that study, the levels generally stayed within the normal range, so maybe not drastic, but something to be aware of. Interestingly, for women with PCOS, some research suggests fasting might actually reduce high testosterone levels, which could be beneficial for symptoms.
Huh. So potentially helpful in some contexts, but maybe something to watch in others. Very nuanced for women. What about for men?
For men, studies have also shown that IF can lead to lower testosterone levels.
Lower testosterone. That sounds like something men might worry about, especially regarding muscle or strength.
Right, you'd think so. But here's the really key finding. The research also suggests these drops don't necessarily seem to cause significant harm to muscle mass or physical strength.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, studies have noted the testosterone decrease, but haven't found corresponding negative effects on muscle in men doing IF. So again, it's complex.
It really underlines that point about individual health and needing professional advice if you have concerns, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Especially when dealing with reproductive hormones, personalized guidance is key.
Okay, this has been incredibly insightful, really digging into those hormonal shifts. So, given all these potential changes, insulin sensitivity, hunger hormones adapting, cortisol considerations, thyroid, sex hormones, what are some practical things people can actually do to support their hormonal balance if they're doing IF or thinking about it?
Great question. Several key things come to mind. First, like we hinted at, start slowly. Don't jump into a 24-hour fast on day one. Give your body time to adjust. Maybe start with a 12 or 14-hour overnight fast and build up gently.
Ease into it. Makes sense.
Second, hydration is huge. Drink plenty of water, especially during the fast. Water is essential for, well, pretty much everything, including hormone production and transport.
Simple but important. What else?
Third, focus on nutrition during your eating window. It's not just about when you eat, but what you eat. Prioritize nutrient-dense whole foods, good protein, healthy fats, complex carbs, lots of veggies. Give your body the raw materials it needs.
Right. Don't just fill the eating window with junk food.
Exactly. That kind of defeats the purpose. Fourth, manage that stress we talked about. Since fasting can be a mild stressor, try not to stack it with tons of other stress. Build in relaxation, meditation, yoga, walks, hobbies, whatever works for you.
Okay, manage stress. Anything else?
And finally, maybe the most important, listen to your body. Pay really close attention to your energy levels, your mood, your sleep quality, hunger signals, how you feel overall.
Be your own detective.
Yeah, your body gives you feedback. If something feels consistently off, you're exhausted, sleeping terribly, constantly irritable, that's a sign to reassess. Maybe shorten your fasting window, adjust your food, or, talk to a professional. It needs to feel sustainable for you.
That's excellent, really practical advice.
Yeah.
So just to recap, we've seen how intermittent fasting can definitely sway a whole range of hormones: insulin, leptin, ghrelin, cortisol, thyroid, sex hormones. And these shifts impact metabolism, appetite, stress, reproductive health. It's all connected.
Precisely. And the big takeaway really is that everyone responds differently. There's no single right way to fast that works for everybody. It's highly individual.
So being mindful, personalizing your approach, and definitely checking with a doctor if you have underlying health conditions is key. Considering how deeply connected all these hormones are and how they react to just changing when we eat, it makes you wonder what other, maybe more subtle long-term effects these shifts might have on our overall well-being, doesn't it?
It really does open up a lot of questions about our body's resilience and adaptability.
Well, on that thought, join us next time on The Deep Dive, where we'll actually be exploring some of that, how intermittent fasting might connect to longevity and the aging process itself.
Looking forward to that one.
Thanks for taking this deep dive into the world of hormones with us today.